Hey everybody, this is Devin with Writing Daily. This is where we talk about how to become a better writer, how to do it well, lots of tips and tricks and things that you're going to want to know in order to finish your book, your memoir, your articles for magazines and newspapers, how to appeal to editors, and all kinds of fun stuff. And today we are going to discuss sort of like the book that I think every writer should own. There's lots of good ones. Matter of fact, if you have one, I'm going to suggest that you put it in this box down here so we can develop a conversation and a community about writing well all the gosh darn time. Anyway, I'm Devin Galaudet. I'm the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler. For the last 13 years, I have been bringing the world travel articles covering 189 countries. I have an MFA in creative nonfiction, and my book, my memoir, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes, is coming soon. It's September, so it's happening sooner than I actually thought about. But it's fun stuff. But we're not going to be discussing that today. We're going to be discussing really sort of like books in general. But we're going to be talking about one particular book that I think is like a knock your socks off kind of thing. I know what you're probably thinking. I'm going to come up with something like this. Roget's Thesaurus. It's a good book. I think probably every writer in North America has it. It is, to me, I think it's important. It's kludgy. And the reason why it's important but kludgy is that, as a personal example, when I write, I tend to use words like things and stuff, these very vague, nondescript words that don't necessarily get at anything, but they're very conversational. So if I'm nodding at you and I'm saying things and stuff, I might be able to using my body language and gestures to guide you into a general idea of what it is that I'm trying to say. And sometimes when I'm saying things like things and stuff, I don't even actually know what I'm talking about. So I'm hoping that my gestures and hand waving and my body language will push you in a direction and you'll figure out what the heck that it is that I'm trying to say. And perhaps if we were having lunch, this would make total sense and it would be an acceptable thing to do. But in the writing world, using really vague words isn't really a useful thing to you. And it's absolutely not a useful thing to anybody who's reading your work. So the idea here is that you want to allow yourself to help turn other people on, which was something that we talked a fair bit about yesterday. So you want to get into the habit of creating an environment in your writing where the reader knows exactly what's going on, has clarity to what's going on, not only between dialogue or just straight narrative, but there should always be something going on that the reader will be able to hang their head on. And again, we discussed this a little bit with this idea that sometimes we have pictures in our brain of what things are like, and we see the colors, we see the picture, we have the angle, we have the point of view, and we have all of these great things going on. So when we're writing it, we don't necessarily have to write out the entire, shall we say, 1,000 words. The picture's worth 1,000 words. We may not be doing that. We may not need to do that for ourselves. But if we lose sight of the fact that we are writing for people who are not sharing our brain, then they're going to be missing the point. So that said, sure, everybody has a Roget's Thesaurus. I think it's kind of a weird setup, and I think it's kind of complicated to use. The thing that I personally use, and this is going to be the book that I recommend, so this may be a short one for you today, is what's called a word finder. This specific one is called the Synonym Finder. It is a big, giant book. Obviously, as you can see on the title there, it says over 1 million sold. So this isn't quite a secret, but it certainly doesn't have the same kind of press. And I think what's really important about it is not only when we're talking about really vague language like things and stuff, and words that kind of are so wide open to interpretation, another habit that a lot of writers get into, because I see it all the time from people who send me work, and when I read their stories, is that they get caught in using the same kind of word over and over, even if the word is very, very specific and exact, and even, shall we say, correct in its placement and usage. The problem still becomes if you keep using sort of the same words over and over again that are, especially if they're less common words, then it becomes sort of like the redundancy sort of triggers the reader and they get lost. Because my first thought is, when I see that, when somebody sends me an article and it's not really been proofread well and it hasn't been edited well, and I see the repeated kind of word over and over and over again in the same way. As an example, if I were to use the word I in 4 or 5 sentences in a row, or maybe even 3 sentences in a row, without mixing it up, if I just kept saying I said, sentence, I said, sentence, I said, sentence, the reader would get caught up in that redundancy in not a good way. That's the moment where somebody who's reading your work is maybe going to stop and think and say, well, I think I need more peanut butter. Maybe, in fact, maybe I should go double check to see if I have enough peanut butter. And if that's happening and you're losing your readers, just imagine when you send your work out to editors or when you are trying to sell a manuscript. So what's great about a word finder, and specifically this one, is really, really easy to use. You just quite literally, if you've been using the same word over and over again, you look up the word and you find the dozens, and in some case hundreds of other words that will be before you that you can use as an alternative. And what's kind of fun about that as a writer is that not only does it open the doors for other possibilities within our work, the other thing is that it helps develop your vocabulary, which is always an important thing. I think it's fun to use sort of like words that you're not going to run into every day. It's fun to kind of like throw a little something in. There's a writer, and matter of fact, I'm not going to mention him by name, but he has a tendency to clearly use a word finder, but he tends to pick the longest, most syllables word in the whole universe. I, as somebody who just said most syllables, tend to be a little bit more conversational in my approach. And so really what I'm looking for is an equivalent to stuff, some common language that will make sense to my reader. And it's something that, so it stays within the flow. In other words, unless I have, let's say, a fiction character who is particularly going out of their way to show off their intelligence, then yes, I may pick big words, big 50-cent words, in order to kind of showcase who they are or tell something about who they are. But if I'm just trying to make my point clear to my reader, I'm more apt to use a word that is common that I may not have thought of or that I may not have used. So one great thing to do is that once you have your manuscript ready is to kind of run around. And, I had a professor, Charmin Apt Russell, who was a super smarty. She's got numerous books out. So big shout out to Charmin. What she would call it was noodling. And basically, it was like you're going through the work and you're trying to find those kind of redundancies and those little moments that are potentially going to take your reader out of your story or the point that you're trying to make. And so this would be where you like replace of and to and little small words, but it's also where you start looking for words that you keep using over and over again and try to actively mix it up a little bit. So the reader's mind doesn't have to feel like they know what's happening and they can just pull themselves out of the story. And it's something that happens automatically. And by the time that happens, it's too late. So this is why you kind of go through your work, you go through your manuscript, you go through your article before you send it into an editor to have a clear idea of what it is that you are going to be saying and doing. Anyway, that's what the cats are making noise in the other room, so I apologize for being a little bit distracted. Anyway, I highly recommend the Synonym Finder. Way, way better than a thesaurus. I've had mine for years. It is a terrific tool, and we've got some more stuff coming up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I'm going to try and do this either early tomorrow or late, because I have a full day planned that was long scheduled beforehand. So I may not be here tomorrow because I'm still trying to do this every day. So if I don't, then I'm going to do 2 shows on Monday, because I want to make sure that I do a show every single day to get you guys continual stuff. And if you have a favorite word, if you have a favorite tool that you use for your own writing, please put it down in this box corner. Say hello. I answer all questions. And if you've got a doozy, I'm going to take that question and we're going to have a podcast about it. And if you want to talk with me live or something like that, join in. I'm going to keep doing this. Join me at devingallaudet.com for more writer's tips. I'm also going to be on YouTube, and I'm easy to find. So let's talk writing and let's become better writers all the time. Anyway, great to see you guys, and I hope you have a terrific day, and we will see you tomorrow.